Hi, this is Brittney, and welcome to the Reclusive Blogger Interviews. After being diagnosed with leukemia in 2005, Mike Peters co-founded the charity Love, Hope, Strength with a fellow cancer survivor. In our interview, we chat about his charity, his time making music with the alarm, the pros and cons of social media, and his new album Forwards, which is out now, a body of work written during a new cancer relapse. I guess we're just going to kind of start off about kind of get a little bit of insight, to get a little background into your story, and just a little bit on that, kind of who you are.
Well, I'm from Wales in the UK, and I started a band called The Alarm in 1981, having experienced life as a punk rocker in the UK, seeing the Sex Pistols and the Clash, and then coming on to America in 1983 with U2, and then experienced our first TV shows in the USA with American Bandstand and The Cutting Edge on MTV, and we were at the birth of all the alternative music scene that was growing at the time with REM and everyone like that, and we've been around one form or another ever since, and we've survived a lot of life to be here. I'm a 3-time cancer survivor, and I'm lucky to be alive to tell the story.
Can you kind of talk about more what some of your influences were back then?
Sure, yeah.
How they maybe have changed as you've kind of grown up during your music career.
Yeah, well, when I got into the early days of punk rock, and it was very creative. It was a time when you couldn't buy clothes that you wanted to wear. You had to seek them out in places that could be dangerous. You couldn't go online. There was no internet. You couldn't just buy a pair of tight black jeans then, or if you wanted to have a T-shirt that was cool, you had to paint spray it yourself or sew a zip into it, or to make a statement, you had to be creative with the clothes you were wearing, with your personality, with your band. People were starting fanzines and writing about groups and fashion and records. And that's how we shared our information. That's how we gathered our information. You'd go into a big city in the UK and you'd see somebody who had maybe something that was slightly homemade or something that was different, and you'd start speaking, because that was the only way you could get information from this young youth grapevine, and that sort of fueled the bands we were into, and then it was a great creative period, and the ramifications of it are still felt today. Punk rock is there in all kinds of fashion. It's without punk rock mentality and intuition, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we have on the internet now. A lot of those things that drive Gen X, if you like, they've been created for them by people who grew up in my generation and wanted access to immediate communication. But because we couldn't have it, it meant we can really appreciate it, and we can find the way to create it and pass it on to all those who are younger than us, who've got, want to be able to say things across the globe and share cultures across the planet.
And since you mentioned that, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, I guess, social media today and how fans are kind of breaking in using things like TikTok and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're great because most artists become strong by having doors closed on them when they're young and they're aspiring and they're trying to realize their dreams. And nowadays, with the YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, all those sort of platforms, you can have an outlet if it's been denied to you, and you can be who you want to be. You can find out what you want to become by being part of those platforms. You can find like-minded people. You can get connected with communities that you feel like you can belong to. And but there's a dark side to the internet as well, isn't there? There's
Mm-hmm.
I've grew up with parents who said to me, if you haven't got anything good to say, don't say anything at all. And that, but
Mm-hmm.
nowadays you can wake up in the morning, and if you're on those platforms, Instagram, and you're posting nice things about your birthday party or being with your family at the weekend or out with your friends, there's always somebody good posting creates jealousy for other people as well, and they can't
Yeah.
resist saying something. And sometimes you can read those bad comments, and it can affect your whole day. It can affect who you are. It can affect your long term view of life. So you have to be strong to go onto the internet as well, and maintain your focus and not be uh, distracted by the negative noise that unfortunately the internet does amplify quite loudly.
I think a lot of music critics as well have kind of amplified as some of their negative, I guess not, I wouldn't say negativity, but I guess a lot of the I think a lot of music critics have also amplified the way that they review
Yeah, because look,
their songs,
I,
albums.
I've come from an era when music journalism was all there was, and that's all
Mm-hmm.
people would read to find out about bands, and there was no alternative other than maybe fanzines, like I mentioned earlier. And I think in the
Mm-hmm.
'80s, music journalism became quite cruel because they got seduced by the power they had, and the power
Mm-hmm.
they had over the audience. And I think some critics could make or break an artist with their
Yeah.
articles, and there was no way of an artist to go to answer back almost, except from the
Mm-hmm.
stage, and often it was too late because the articles had come out after the bands left town. And music journalists contributed to the serious negative mental health of a lot of amazing artists. You think of Kurt Cobain from,
Yep.
you think what the music press did to him. And they have to take some responsibility when, if you're going to write negatively. I think you have to be prepared for the damage it can do, and you have to think twice. And that's why it brings back to the way my parents brought me up. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything. If you go to see the
Yeah.
band and you don't like them, don't write the review. Leave it for somebody who does like the band. And because I never go to a show and see 100% of the people booing the band off stage. Generally, I hear
Yeah.
90% like the band, and then
Mm-hmm.
10% might think, "Oh, it's not for me," or "I haven't seen. I'm going to have to come back to the next
Mm-hmm.
show. I don't know the music." And I don't think you can base the review on, if you're that person, if you're in that minority, then leave the review to someone who's actually participated, what the majority have felt from that concert, because that's the true
Mm-hmm.
picture of the show. And unfortunately, a lot of music journalism is based on a minority person who goes into the show and thinks, "I'm not going to like this. I don't like the band," and all these people are enjoying them are off their minds. And I think that's really cruel, and also not responsible enough for considering the amount of power that can come and the amount of influence that they have with at their the point of their pen.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, a lot of it now is like, oh, look at the power I hold, and more clicks and more likes and more people that they can drive to their account. And a lot of it is just like, oh, more followers, more likes, more this and more that. And it's just kind of like this endless cycle of more, me, and they're not even really thinking about at the end of the day, just like you're a creative as well, the artist is a creative, and
Yeah, to me,
just kind of think of it from that aspect.
it's all about being. It's all about, if you're making music, it's about putting your energy into music making. If you're about being an actor, it's about putting your energy into the acting. If you're going to be a clothes
Mm-hmm.
designer, design the clothes and put all the energy into those things, rather than the energy of trying to become famous and stay on
Mm-hmm.
top of your social profile and generate likes,
Yep.
and just be happy with what you've got, that you get from your parents or your best friends or those closest to you, and the energy that comes back to you from someone liking your painting or liking the way you look that day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best thing, rather than these likes and dislikes that come from afar and have got don't even know who those people are.
Mm-hmm.
And they can have they can really have a large sway over your lifetime. And I think that's where you need to be able to be focused on who you actually are rather than what you're creating for yourself, because those
Mm-hmm.
images can be false, and you can believe, we're all guilty as artists. When all you have are great reviews, you think, wow, I'm a genius, it's amazing. It inevitably goes to your head, and just as if everyone's pounding you and saying, oh, you're terrible and your record's no good, you feel like you're worthless. And I think you have to find a balance and don't get too high by the praise and don't get too low from the negatives. Try to just stay with a perspective that keeps you on an even balance.
I agree. And I guess to kind of relate it back to when you were first starting out, um, do you think it was worse or better back then when there was, um, I guess maybe less of the social aspect and less of the, I guess, less electronic aspect as well because of like computers and things, or maybe when you were just kind of first starting out and you were just like, oh, I've got to just get the music out and things like that.
Yeah, look, one time in my life, we were in a band and we thought, oh, if we only get a journalist to come to see us and write about us, then the world would know how good we were. And we tried to kidnap a journalist from the New Musical Express in Carnaby Street in London and bundle him into a van and make him come and see us. And unfortunately, it went all pear shaped, and it got a bit ugly and very embarrassing. And there was an old journalist there called Roy Carr, who's no longer with us anymore. But he broke up
Mm-hmm.
this melee, and he pulled me to one side and said, "Mike, all this energy, I understand it. I appreciate where you're coming from, but this isn't the way to do it." He said, "If you go home and put all the energy you've just showed me right there, put all that energy into writing your next song. Let that be the vehicle to drive people to see your band, not these fake PR stunts and all that. Just put all the energy into the music. And if the music is only meant to take you to the garage, so be it. But if it takes you to Wembley Stadium, then that's great as well. Just live in the moment."
And so, I want to kind of get into the some of the things that were in the email and press release that I was sent, which is about your charity work and I guess kind of talk a bit about that and being a cancer survivor, and I get and your wife Jules was also a cancer survivor. Kind of talk about that and the Welsh Chapel that you um,
Yeah. Well, we've
were turned into.
yeah, when like
Sorry.
people in the USA, in Britain, our healthcare system is free to the people who live in the UK, and we don't have to sign up to big insurance policies and the uncertainty that goes with all that. In the UK, the National Health Service cares for everybody, regardless of how much wealth they've got, or their creed, or their colour, or their background, or their political persuasion. We all get looked after the same, one and equal. And we both, Jules, my wife, and I are very grateful for the treatment we've received over the years of being cancer survivors over a long period of time. And we always wanted to give back to the front line, to the nurses, the auxiliary staff who help tend the wards, keep the people upbeat on the wards while they're receiving treatments for life challenging situations. And so our resolve was to climb the mountains we could see from the cancer centre in North Wales, and when we would take all the alarm fans to the summit and hold an acoustic concert, and the money we raised we'd give to the nurses. It didn't go into research. We thought there was lots of great charities doing big things for research, but there wasn't enough for just simple online on the ward engagement where it's on the front line. So whether that was having extra pillows so people could sit up a little bit better while they were having IV, or information for kids so they could understand what their parents were going through and vice versa. So that was where our drive to create a charity called Love, Hope, Strength was, to literally give love, hope, strength, because that's what you need the most to it. And you're dealing with it. The
Mm-hmm.
drugs are amazing, but they don't work without positivity, without a mental strength, and you get that from your family and your loved ones around you. And then we branched out. We went further afield. We climbed, instead of climbing mountains in Wales, we climbed in Africa. We did Kilimanjaro. And the money we raised, we didn't bring it back to the UK or the USA. We left it in Africa, and it goes 10 times further there than it does here in the United States or in Europe. And we helped build a children's cancer centre in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. We've done the same. We climbed Everest, and we built a cancer centre in Kathmandu, the Back to Poor Cancer Centre, and we helped provide uh, Nepal with its first mammography machine, so women who were suffering from breast cancer, like Jules did, could have the treatment in Nepal, and they didn't have to fly to India, where they had those kind of machines and technology. So we've been able to make a difference with our charity. We've signed up 250,000 people to the International Stem Cell Bone Marrow Donor Registry to find matches for people who, like me, have blood cancer and need a donor to give them the stem cells to create a boosted immune system where they can fight back against the leukemia and recover and gain a normal life again, get their life back. So we've done a lot of great things with a lot of great people helping us, from fans bringing, and you can't do it alone. You have to have people who, you have to rely on others, and luckily the call of Love, Hope, Strength has touched a lot of people's hearts and imaginations, and they've rolled up the sleeve and got in the trenches with us, and we've been able to make a difference and show people the new face of cancer, where there is a tomorrow with cancer now. There wasn't at one time, but there is now. And if you stay strong mentally, you can enjoy what tomorrow can bring. And that may be a last chance to say goodbye to your children, or to hug your wife one more time, or to walk into a new future where they can say, you don't have cancer anymore. You can go back to life and live to the fullness of time that you've been granted on this earth. So that's what Love, Hope, Strength is all about.
I also read that you are also working on new music. Was that, did you get that idea before or after that you started working on your charity?
Yeah, no,
And
we've got a new album. It's called Forwards. It's out on June 16th, and that
mhm,
started life when I was in hospital last year. I was in for a long time because
mhm,
I was diagnosed with pneumonia. My leukemia reared its ugly head again and started to impact on my life in a very dangerous way. I had to be transitioned
mhm.
from one drug regime to another, and so I was in hospital for a long time. I asked my wife to bring my guitar in on the ward, and I just play guitar quietly to myself to keep my fingers going. And the other staff and the patients, they always saying, "Play it louder." Do you know any songs? Can you play any? They're asking, "Can you play the Beatles or something?" And I'd sing a little song quietly, and and everyone was enjoying it. They'd break from the monotony of the heart rate monitor and the respiratory machines that are going all the time, and it just became a break to the dull ache of the day in hospital. And then before you know it, without, I couldn't stop myself, new songs started to appear. And there was one day when there was a gentleman hovering near the end of my bed, and he was like, "You're Mike Peters from the Alarm, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, my dad's in the ward, and I've come in to see him, and I realised you were here." And I was telling all the Alarm fans on the internet last night that you're in the cancer centre, and I was thinking, oh no, people have found out now. So I had to write a letter to all the fans to reassure them. Well, I signed off my letter with the word Forwards, and I thought that's a new record there, and that's a song. And they appeared in my imagination straight away, and I was able to transcribe them and give them life through my guitar. And as soon as I got out of hospital, recorded them, and now the album's coming out, and I feel good and back to life and ready to play music again live. And I'm in Los Angeles, and life couldn't be better.
What is the biggest thing that you learned while building your charity, and what is the biggest lesson that you learned while dealing with cancer,
Yeah,
and kind of looking back on your life as you were dealing with it?
nothing is insurmountable. There's always another way, and there's always optimism. If you could, and sometimes you have to generate your own hope to be able to get through the night till tomorrow. And it's the simple things, making the most of the simplest things in life. That's the real wealth in this world. The simple things, being able to tell somebody that you love them, being able to hold them, being able to give someone a hug, and be able to spread a little happiness. That's the beauty of life, and that's the great lesson that cancer teaches you.
I kind of want to ask you a little bit more about music. Are there any kind of artists, it doesn't have to be within like the rock and punk genre, that you're kind of like listening to now that you
I'm a big Northern Soul fan, which is a scene that sprung up in the UK in the 70s. And it was a lot of obscure American soul music,
mhm,
black music that hadn't become Marvin Gaye or, Diana Ross and the Supremes. It wasn't massive music, Martha and the Vandellas, and it wasn't. It was underground, and artists like Dean Parrish or Frank Wilson, artists like that. I really love those records, the great Northern Soul records, and they're played with live drummers, and they're great to dance to, and I think the music is it's so alive with energy, and I've been rediscovering that recently, and some amazing records and they generally tend to be American artists like the Tams, Jackie Wilson. I love all those records; they're absolutely beautiful, and they're so uplifting, and they make you feel good to be alive.
what are there any new artists that you're kind of into?
Yeah, I like a band from Dublin called Fontaines DC. I think they're really
Oh
cool.
yeah.
I like
Mhm.
the fact they sing in an Irish accent, and they put their own spin on sort of Irish folk, and they make it their own. And I like people singing in their own voices, and they're fantastic at that. And they don't sound like anybody on earth. And I think that they're a beautiful band. It was a band from Wales I love, who I think they might have broken up, or trying to keep it together, called Catfish and the Bottlemen. That's a band
Oh yeah, I
I
remember
really love
them.
them, and
Mhm.
they seem to have been affected by the pandemic, but I hope they're still alive and ready to make a new record, because they made some great music. There's a band from Britain called the Lathams that are cool at the moment, and yeah, some good music out there. I think it's just got to be open to it, because a lot of these young bands don't have the same outlets anymore, and it's
Mhm.
don't get a chance to develop and get to the third, fourth album, where a lot of the
Mhm.
bands that are huge, and you look at and nowadays there's still the big bands that headline Glastonbury and the big festivals, Coachellas and all that kind of stuff. There's still bands from the 80s and 90s. You still think of the Killers as being a new band, but they started in the 90s.
But they're not.
Same with the
Mhm. They've
Foo
been around.
Fighters. It's incredible, but
Mhm.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, they've been around as long as we have, but they're still seen as being alternative and new, because nothing's come along to replace them of late. So I just hope there's some bands out there who feel challenged by what we're talking about and think, yeah, we're going to be the new Foo Fighters, we're going to be the new Killers, and let's go for it and make a name for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it was a YouTube video that I was watching, and it was talking about how people are so quick to call an artist or a band a flop because they had like maybe one single that went big or one album that did really well, but then the next album didn't do as well, and it's like, oh, they failed, they
That's
flopped,
it.
and I'm like, it's
Exactly.
ridiculous. You need to give artists chances to grow and
Exactly. Look,
experiment.
I grew up in an era when we came out and we were playing with the U2s and the Jam, or the Clash, or Bob Dylan and Neil Young. Nobody knew what the ticket sales were at gigs. Nobody knew how many albums you'd sold. It wasn't when you were
Hmm.
in the Billboard chart like we were in the 80s in the Alarm. We were at just number 40 in the chart, but people didn't know how many records we'd sold. They just saw a band doing it and being amongst it, and that was enough. And then when the internet came, everyone wanted to know what those numbers were. Well, how many people are really at the gig? And it's like, does it matter? Does it matter? Was the gig good? That's all that counts. But now it's about, how many likes do they have on their Facebook account?
Hmm.
Well, it doesn't matter. Are they any good? Is the band good? If they're good, let's leave it at that. But everyone wants to know the numbers and the stats. And the stats aren't always right. The stats don't tell the real story. They don't tell where the real connections are going on. And I'd much rather it be a society where we didn't have all this obsession with stats and breaking things down, and let's just enjoy the music for what it is, rather than, oh, it's not,
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't got a million hits today, oh my god, it's all over, oh no. It's ridiculous when you think about it, that we judge society on all those kind of criterias now, whereas we don't use our ears anymore, we don't lose our instinct anymore, we have to
Mm-hmm.
go on the stats, and the stats are, that's the biggest falsehood in life.
Yeah, and sometimes the stats don't always correlate with what is the best or or most
It
talented,
doesn't. It just,
and what is fame chasing.
look again. When I was a kid growing up as well, you could be, we all we wanted with it was our artists to ourselves. We wanted them to be underground. We didn't want our artists to become big and popular and liked by our
Mm-hmm.
parents or the people we worked with. We just wanted to have this cool secret, and you can't have that anymore. It's, it's not, it's not.
No.
But that's where bands can develop, and I'll be with my fans for 3 or 4 years, then we'll be ready to go overground and get even bigger and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't happen like that anymore, and I think all art is worse off for that now, because you can put out some great films and then one critic slams it, the film's over, it's done, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
crime. It's not cool, not right.
What is one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you whenever they first meet you?
But I am who I am, and I say what I say, and I mean what I mean, and it's they seem to be that's, they just want me to be me, and I am. I don't. People can take me as they find me. I'm straight up, and I don't. I think they're surprised that there's no surprise.
What's next on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm here in the USA. I'm doing a promo tour, doing lots of interviews and TV and radio and chats online, and then I go back to the UK in a couple of days, and then we start touring again, and we're playing shows, and we've got some festivals, and then we're coming to play in New York on the 23rd and 24th of June, doing 2 nights at the Gramercy Theatre, which is going to be fantastic, and just can't wait to get
Mhm.
back on the boards and put our new album out forwards into the world on June 16th.
You're talking so much about online
Yeah,
stuff. Where can people find you guys?
we're easy to find on the online. We're The Alarm, and we're at thealarm.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking with
All
me.
right,
It
really
was very nice talking with you.
nice talking with you too. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next episode. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, check me out on socials. This is Brittney, and you have been listening to the Reclusive Blogger Interviews.